All right, our next guest has a new memoir titled Home and Alone. He was the voice that carried you through the wonder years. He's a real city slicker, a wet bandit. Today, it's time to let the big dog eat. Big movie star, farmer, Daniel Stern. What's going on, Dan?
Hey, Gentry, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I've been reading through your new book. I can't believe you drop out of high school, you struggle with dyslexia, but here you are, writer, director, farmer. You pulled through, my man. Congratulations.
Thanks for throwing the farmer thing in there, too. Yeah, so I've got avocados and tangerines for sale. And if you buy 2 copies of the book, you get a free bag of tangerines.
And I hear the citrus world is really difficult right now. It's hard to grow tangerines these days.
Yeah, that's my wife's department. I just wander around the orchard and think great thoughts, and she does all the work. And eat as many tangerines as I want. No, I love the ag life. Actually, I mean, it's really found a new way of living for me. Not in the city, but out in the country, and I love spending time out in nature. So that's been a really incredible addition to my life.
Everybody needs to go pick up the new memoir, Home and Alone, not just because you want to read the great stories that Daniel Stern has put down on paper, but all the proceeds from this book going to benefit the Boys and Girls Club, which I think is pretty solid of you to do, Dan.
Well, it was interesting to, my wife and I started a Boys and Girls Club. I love working with kids, and I realized writing the book, like you said, I was a dyslexic high school dropout, but my parents and my community did instill some kind of confidence in me. And then I realized, the movies that I've been, like the Home Alone movies, the Rookie of the Year, Bushwhacked, they were all about empowering young people and kids. You can do this kind of spirit to the movies. And that's what the Boys and Girls Clubs do as well. They create incredible young people. They have mentors and really, really help empower young people. So I realized, that's what this book is about. And that made sense to kind of, bring to be given the proceeds to the Boys and Girls Club, kind of made the whole book experience make sense that way.
Well, I remember when I was a little zit-faced boy and going to the theater, I think it was 7th grade for me, and the theater that day was so packed that I had to sit on the stairs to watch Home Alone, but I did not mind at all because we laughed the entire time and our lives were forever changed after walking out of that theater. I can't believe #1, I think, for 12 weeks. And then when you hear all the wild stories about how Warner Brothers wouldn't give you the extra money and you turned down the role of Marv, it's like all these great movies are perfect when you see them in the big screen, but there's a lot of drama behind the camera, right?
Oh, yeah. Trying to make any kind of movie is next to impossible. To have all the pieces come together just to get it made, to have it come together and have it made and be good is threading the needle. And then to have such a special movie like the Home Alone movies or the City Slickers come together like that, kind of the little perfect gems is next to it impossible, and it seems. But it was just a wonderful process of doing it, and that have the audience embrace it at the time was unheard of. And the life that it's had all these years later is really an amazing thing to try to wrap my head around, like that it's still out there and people still feel that connection with the film. It's really such an honor to be a part of it. It really is.
Now, the story I read is that you quit the role of Marv and you decided I'm not taking the gig, and they even put some guy on the set, Dan Roebuck, and Pesci didn't mesh with the guy, and then they call you back. But why did you turn down the gig? Not enough money? You didn't like the script? What was the reasoning behind it?
Well, basically, I'm a big idiot because I loved it. I loved the movie. I loved the script. I auditioned for it. I went back and auditioned again when they didn't even ask me to, because I wanted to be in it so much. But the thing is, I had 3 little kids at the time, and I'd been going out and doing movies, and I was feeling very guilty about leaving they said, you got the part. It's 6 weeks in Chicago. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. And then I did it. And then a few weeks before we started shooting, they said, you know what? We changed the schedule. It's 8 weeks now instead of 6 weeks. And I said, you know what? I really can't be away from my family. 6 weeks already felt bad. 8 weeks, I can't do it. I was feeling so stupidly guilty about it. My wife's, we'll be fine. And so I said, I'm not doing it. And then they hired Dan Roebuck, who's a tremendous actor, by the way. And Pesci was like, get Stern, because Joe and I knew each other from before. We'd done a movie together years before called I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can, which we were luckily both cut out of. And Joe wanted, but we became friends on that movie. So Joe kind of said, just make it 6 weeks and get him back here. So they redid the schedule, brought me back to 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, because as soon as they'd hired the other guy, I felt so stupid. I felt so, cutting my nose off to spite my face or whatever that phrase is. I was so short-sighted and who knows what my life would have been like if Mr. Pesci hadn't stepped up and saved me from my stupid decision.
The movie Home Alone, some physical comedy at its finest. I mean, the stunts, the reaction. I remember director Chris Columbus said, if it hurts, it's funny. And the scene that I think of the most, and people have actually gotten this tattooed on their bodies, the scene where you're laying there and the tarantula crawls over your mouth. Now that wasn't CGI, because this is well before that. Did they actually put a tarantula on your face?
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
They were very happy with that. I was a little surprised because by that point we'd done a bunch of the stunts, and the prop department was, I walk across the Christmas bulbs and they're all like these little sugar candied, but they look so real. Or the iron in the face, it looks so real. I thought, okay, I can't wait to see what they do with the tarantula. Oh, no, we didn't come up with anything for that. We're going to use the real tarantula. But I was so in the groove at that point. It's all right, put the tarantula on my face, let's go. And it freaked out the crew. Yeah, people do have that tattooed on them. I've seen pictures. It's turned into quite an iconic moment, and it still makes me laugh that because I didn't mind it at all, but it freaked people out.
Now that's a moment that made me laugh, but I want to tell you a moment that made me cry, and it does I watched it this morning just to kind of relive it again. But the last lines of the original Wonder Years is a kid asking his dad if he wants to play catch, and I was told that kid delivering that perfect line while we're all welling up in tears is actually your real son as you're narrating the very end of the Wonder Years. Is that true?
Absolutely. It was, we got to that last episode. We weren't sure that was going to even be the last season. But then they said this show's ending. They wrote that final speech. Yeah. And it had that voice come in, and they all knew my son's name's Henry, and Henry had come by the set a few times. They said, why don't you have Henry do it? I wept like a baby. The Wonder Years was such a brilliant experience, such a brilliant show, meant so much to me. It really paralleled my life. It was the exact same time I was growing up. It was just like my hometown. I felt like I was telling my stories each week. And then to have that wrap up with my son there, reading that line and closing out that brilliant show, that recording episode took like 4 times as long because I kept crying during the reading of it, and it was such a sweet, perfect little bow on that gift.
I got to tell you, man, superb. And me being in the voice business, I mean, you really delivered those lines. Where did you draw inspiration for that delivery, or is that just your natural read?
Completely me. I drew it from the script. Because I'd never been a voice actor. I'd never even thought of that. Voiceover work was something that people with big baritones had, like I had my voice. But the thing that I think the reason why they picked me from my audition for that was because I believed every word of it. Those were the streets I was walking up. It talked about walking through your neighborhood with the blue lights from the TVs glowing, and it's like, that's me. That was me on my paper route. I mean, those stories really were my stories, and I just felt them. So it turned out to be a great part, not just a good gig, but like the part itself of the storyteller fit me like a glove in the stories, really. Again, when Kevin's talking about his first kiss or his failing a class in school, I was just telling you my stories.
Well, you can hear his story in his new memoir, Home and Alone. It's available on Amazon or wherever you read your books. He's also a great follow on Instagram and Twitter @TheRealDanielStern. I've heard you say that the Rookie of the Year is your most profound experience of filmmaking in your life. I'm going to see the Cubs tomorrow in Tampa Bay, so I'm a big Cubs fan, so I loved the movie. But you got to direct John Candy in that film. You got to be at Wrigley. I mean, what an experience. I can see why it was your most profound experience.
Yeah, and directing it, like I directed on the Wonder Years. I'd sort of cut my teeth on that, but to have a whole, and I'd been in a lot of movies, and to get to be behind the camera and really write the script with the writer, hire the crew, hire the cinematographer, pick each angle and shot, and put all the baseball together. It was such a huge personal challenge, artistic challenge, a leadership challenge of bringing the crew together to create a vision and the story and the baseball. And I loved all those things. And then I'm shooting at Wrigley for, 3 months. I'm getting to know the most iconic baseball field inside and out. And then I'm playing a silly character. I mean, it was one thing after another. And again, the people I got to work with, all the way down to Bill Conti, when I finally got to score the film. I mean, I got to direct John Candy and other great actors, but then I got to work with Bill Conti, who wrote the Rocky score, and all those iconic movies. And he taught me about composing film scores. So, I mean, it was a learning experience of a lifetime. A comedic experience. It was a successful movie, working with all those people and being at Wrigley. I mean, I still can't believe I did it. I still can't believe it.
Before we wrap up here, I just have some legendary names. I'm going to mention a name of somebody you've worked with, and then boom, exactly whatever pops into your head right away, just spill it out real quick. We'll start with, from working with him in City Slickers, the talented and funny Billy Crystal.
Oh, Billy is Billy just won the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Congressional Award. I mean, Billy is way up there. You look at his body of work. He's a brilliant guy, a menschy person, a very giving actor, and funny as hell. Don't cross him because he'll get back at you.
How about Macaulay Culkin?
Sweetheart, super talented. I feel protective of Macaulay. I always felt protective of him. He hit such a high level of fame as such a young kid that I've always felt protective of Macaulay. And, he's brought the world so much joy. He's a one in a million. John
Candy, you got to direct him in Rookie of the Year, like we said. What a talent.
Again, a giving guy who's so creative in the moment. He, not only did I get to direct him in Rookie, but I got to watch him shoot his scenes in Home Alone. He just makes stuff up. He just keeps going. He's like he was a bottomless well of comedy, humanity, and creativity, and the gentlest man I've ever worked with.
Joe Pesci.
Artist extraordinaire. If you want to know about Joe Pesci, besides all his brilliant on-screen stuff, Joe is one of the premier jazz singers you will ever hear. He sings like Sinatra and Tony Bennett. He records under the name Joe Doggs, Doggs. So Joe is a brilliant artist. Besides being a wonderful guy and an intimidating guy, his artistry is his hidden secret.
And then finally, I hear he kind of bullied his way onto the set in Home Alone 2, but Donald Trump, our former president, you worked with him on Home Alone 2.
I did. He's quite a figure in our country. Who knew that I would inspire him so much just in that short meeting at Home Alone 2 that he was motivated to go on to a political career. But he's quite a force in nature.
This book is a true work of art. Home and Alone, the new memoir. Pick it up this weekend for Father's Day weekend. Give it to your dad. It's a great read. Thanks for spending some time with us, Daniel, the great Daniel Stern. Thanks for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.